began to paint the hall at home, you know, that kind of stuff. But it was quite painful, really. So I was getting quite fed up with this habitual groove that my mind was going to of planning, and having to keep pulling myself back to my meditation subject. It was just quite painful. And a phrase of Bante's was going around in my mind that too much thinking is pathological. And it really felt like my thinking was quite pathological. It felt quite compulsive, not very useful. So I was trying to get underneath the thinking and just kind of reflecting on what it was all about. And yeah, it just occurred to me that I was trying to fix things. I was trying to fix samsara. I was trying to, heal the unhealable, really. Fix the unfixable. And trying to control, really trying to control things. And that was just really painful. And actually, and also it was a way that I was stopping myself fully turning towards what was painful. By trying to fix it, I wasn't actually taking on board, you know, the suffering that was going on in the world. I was turning away from it slightly. So yeah, I've long had the four reminders as a daily practice for me, and so I particularly love the verse about dukkha. So which goes, the karma I create shapes the course of my life, but however I act, life always has difficulties. No one can control it all. So I find this verse really comforting. It reminds me that of course there is suffering in the world, and there's no way that I can fix it all. I can't do that. So it lets me off the hook of having to try and fix it, and meant that I could just enjoy my experience and just enjoy my simple life, and meant I could relax, and I just felt much more contented after that. So it's quite just very useful realization. So I'm going to end with a poem that Dennis pointed out to me. It's by Mary Oliver, and I think it's been on Facebook, maybe on the Facebook page. It's called Today. Today I'm flying low, and I'm not saying a word. I'm letting all the voodoos of ambition sleep. The world goes on as it must. The bees in the garden rumbling a little, the fish leaping, the gnats getting eaten, and so forth. But I am taking the day off, quiet as a feather. I hardly move, though really I'm travelling a terrific distance. Stillness, one of the doors into the temple. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Peter. I'm just sort of sitting here thinking of the poem Pranashree's read out, which was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, just a lot of gratitude to Pranashree, and just struck by the beauty of her shrine. Her and Dennis's shrine is fantastic. So yeah, thank you Bodhinaga for asking me to give this talk. Kind of the period has been, yeah, I suppose like us all in a way, it's just constantly sort of turning over in our minds. It is in my mind, my mental states, my response to external stimuli, news, and so forth. And at times that's been quite overwhelming, and at times I found inspiration as well in the last however many weeks it is, months, 2 months or so. What do I do? I work at Hallam University as sort of combination of researcher and sort of management role. So before lockdown, I spend quite a lot of time either in meetings or doing research or writing. Probably too much time in meetings, and in some respects that sort of transferred itself quite neatly to a world of Zoom. Yeah. Other things that have happened, I suppose, is my children, Tilly and Malachi, who are 12 and 10, have been off school. Actually, just from about a week before the actual lockdown started. So we've been sort of learning to home educate them, or try. Also trying to give them enough space and support, and realize actually we can only do so much, you know, and the important thing is just to be there and have sort of trust and faith in what we've done. They are more or less with me at weekends, and during this period they've also been with me for a little bit in the mornings for some loosely termed lessons, I think. At the start of lockdown, I was really lucky. I had a week's leave. It was planned, sort of in the run up to, I guess, Easter time. And it's just great to have the time to meditate more. And also it's a time when I think the Padmaloka, in particular Padmavajra, was giving talks, quite regularly giving talks, at least once a week. And I was just regularly turning to those. I was having the opportunity to kind of listen to Satyaraja lead through a meditation retreat. And that was just a really rich week doing that, but also sort of spending quiet time with the children. And that's been a kind of ongoing presence throughout this time. The other richness, I think, of this time has been I'm in a great study group with Vidanya and with some great men who training for ordination. And we've just kept in touch with each other regularly, either in small groups, one-to-one contacts, catch-ups. And that's just been remarkable. It's just been absolutely love, you know, just sort of sense of love, caring for each other, thinking about each other during this time. A real sense of, Sigalavada Sutta of, spiritual friendship being absolutely vital, absolutely central to the spiritual life. However, I have felt overwhelmed quite often, and a couple of weeks ago I was just feeling quite melancholic, change in the world, seeing and feeling ill will arising as well. I'm just feeling really uncomfortable with that, being caught up in my own sort of neuroses, neurotic state, being triggered by things, being quite reactive, I suppose. And then I think that has turned in last week again, of leading up to Buddha Day, and it was just this remarkable beauty and delight in all sort of radiant facets of the Buddha, and that's just kind of keeps bringing to mind a sort of, when I see a unhelpful state arising, I seem more able now to sort of bring the Buddha to mind, think about what the Buddha would do. I suppose the two lessons I had at the end of this, or so far, have been things I perhaps haven't done and kind of need to turn back to are just making time to do nothing. It's easy to get caught up in busyness, and just doing nothing is a good practice. And I think finally is, the richness and delight of just finding inspiration in the Dharma, in the Buddha's life, in the Sangha, has been absolutely vital and absolutely lovely at this time, and just, an absolute delight. I'll stop there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bodhinaga. Yeah, hopefully I'm unmuted. Yeah, I am. Yeah, the first thing to say is that I chopped off all my hair thinking no one was going to see it until it had grown back after lockdown, and forgot that I would be talking to 82 people on Zoom. So I'm feeling a bit self-conscious about that. Yeah, so my situation during the lockdown is that I'm at home with 3 of my 4 children, aged between 11 and 17. The 3 that are here, my 18-year-olds that are dads. I'm a single parent going through divorce. So we're not going out at all because one of my children needs full shielding. So we're in the house all the time, but where I live's really rural. So we've got lots of outdoor space, lots of walks nearby, and it's really beautiful where we are. So I'm really fortunate, actually. And I think these conditions during this lockdown have really been really good for me and my practice, really. I'm finding it really integrating, because it's like it's a bit like having retreat conditions, in that there's a lot more space and a lot more time around what I'm doing, so that I can really see what's going on. I've got developing a lot more awareness of kind of my internal stuff, but I've also got everything still going on. You know, I've still got my relationships, I'm still dealing with the divorce, and I'm with my children pretty much all the time. So it's quite a good combination, I think, for really seeing what's happening, for seeing my own conditioning. And I think 3 main things really that I've been doing. I'm doing an online meditation retreat with Jenny and Jordana, and that's probably the main focus of my practice at the moment. And because of this kind of extra awareness, I'm doing quite a lot of psychological work around kind of my past events and trauma, and how my conditioning kind of plays out. And I think, like Peter said, one of the other main things is staying connected with spiritual friends. I'm doing that on Zoom, but it's got to be kind of like conversation with a purpose. It's got to be I'm realizing that I really need quite deep communication. So loads and loads of Zooming chit chat's not good. You know, it needs to be kind of have a purpose. So I've got kind of different groups, study groups, meditation groups and things, and that's really working. So just one thing I'll talk about is the meditation retreat, because there's too much to talk about. We've only got a few minutes. It's called The Awakening Heart, and it's from the Vajraloka Retreat Centre. And there's a booklet and led meditations that you can do at home. And it's on the divine abodes, the Brahma Viharas, so cultivating metta, compassion, joy and equanimity. So that's the meditations that we've been doing. And I'm doing them every day, and then we're meeting as a group twice a week to talk about it. And it's just lovely. I've never done so much metta practice before, and it's just absolutely lovely. I'm really gaining a lot from it. I've been working with anxiety, really, I think, for a few years in my practice. And doing this meditation retreat and talking about the meditations, I feel like I've really gained some kind of freedom from habitual anxiety, really. Especially because my current circumstances are really triggering a lot of anxiety, and I've been quite caught up in all that. So having this extra space and extra time and extra meditation and these discussions, it's really helped. And what it's helped with is kind of taking apart the label of anxiety into what it actually is. So I've been able to see what's actually going on. So seeing it and examining it as feelings in the body and thoughts in my mind, and that's it. That's kind of what it is. It's nothing else than that. So just unpleasant bodily feeling, Vedana, and thinking, and then I've kind of labelled that as anxiety. So I've really been able to see, because of the slowness of life, really, I've been able to see how painful feelings just arise in my body. They're just gonna happen. And that's all right, you know, that's okay, because they're conditioned. They're coming from things in the past, and they make sense, you know, they make sense given my past conditions and my current situation. There's nothing wrong with them. I think that's what I've come to, is like, there's nothing wrong with that. They don't mean anything's wrong. They don't mean I've done anything wrong. They're just feelings in the body. They're just sensations in the body. And the same thing I'm seeing with thought is these are just thoughts, and it sounds really simple, it's very basic, but it's something that I kind of knew but didn't know, you know. So now I can see that these thoughts don't mean that they're a prediction of the future. So when I have an anxious thought, it doesn't mean that anything is going to happen. It doesn't mean that it's like I've broken a little bit of a thread between having a thought and thinking that that predicts something in the future. And now I can just go, it's just a thought. It doesn't mean anything. I can ignore it in a way. So yeah, it sounds simple, but I do feel like I've broken some links there, and it's really helpful just having all this extra time. So yeah, what I've learned from the lockdown is that being less busy is really good for me. And I really like metta practice, which I didn't know. And I really love having no hair. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. So, in this uncertain time, I've been developing a deeper understanding of Karana, which Paula helpfully mentioned. So Karana is the second Brahma Vihara, or heavenly abode. And it's often translated as compassion, but it's much, much more than that. So it's the natural response that we feel when our metta touches suffering. It's love that experiences pain. So in this time right now, the suffering of those around me, both that I know and that I don't, is a lot more apparent than it has been. And but the suffering has always been there. It's always been there, but it's more apparent. So it's very easy to become overwhelmed and anxious and despondent. And it's completely natural to feel this in this time. It's so normal and so very human to feel these things. But they're reactions that I want to move away from. I want to move towards a more open state, a more positive state of love, rather than the closed negative states of anxiety. I want to move towards Karana, towards compassion for those suffering, but without feeling suffering myself for looking at that. And I want to turn towards the suffering of the world and not turn away. And I really feel that anxiety and overwhelm are responses of turning away. They're turning away from others and being more fixated on a sense of self, actually, ironically. It feels like when I'm anxious, I'm thinking, I can't handle this, me personally. I don't want this to be happening. I don't want to see this. And that is reinforcing my sense of myself and my own ego. Whereas I want to be more connected, I want to be more open to others rather than just thinking about myself. And Karana, interestingly, is often as simple as witnessing. Really looking at and bearing witness to my own and to others' suffering. And when I do this, it's really magical because I feel intimately more connected with others, even if I'm not with them, because I know that they suffer as I suffer. You know, they may suffer in different ways to me, but all beings experience suffering unless they're enlightened, and I can feel connected because of that. But luckily, I'm never alone in my wish to look at the suffering of the world, because if I was alone, it might be impossible. So I have the three jewels, thankfully. I have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So I've got my Sangha friends, my Sangha teachers, both in Sheffield and worldwide, both in the present and in the past. And I have the image of green Tara. So Tara is an archetypal bodhisattva figure who for me represents an infinite and unconditional love for all beings. And if I ever feel overwhelmed at the suffering of the world, I bring to mind the image of Tara, because she can hold it all easily. Green Tara wears a rainbow-coloured skirt. And to me, this represents joy and playfulness. So she cares intimately for all of the pain that all of the beings feel, and yet it doesn't stop her from being joyful. It doesn't stop her play, and yet she cares so intimately. So all of these things that I've mentioned, they show me that I can be much bigger than I am, much bigger than I think I am. And I can hold the suffering that I and others experience and respond only with kindness and with love. I can really turn towards it. And as well as this, I can experience joy simultaneously. On the spiral path towards enlightenment, in the right conditions, we start with dukkha. Well, that's just the conditions that we're in. But in the right conditions, we go from dukkha to faith, and from faith arises joy. So I really think this is the kindest thing that I can do right now for both myself and for others. I can, through reflection and meditation, I can cultivate metta, I can cultivate karuna, and I can work to bring about the conditions for faith and joy to arise from dukkha. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. So I'm Achara. This is Adhisthana and Sangharakshita's grave behind me, but that's not where I'm at. I'm speaking to you from Sheffield. For those who don't know me, my circumstances are I'm married to Mokshalila. I live in Sheffield. We're both self-employed. We both lost all income very quickly weeks ago, and there's some uncertainty what income will return. So I mention that because that's been quite a big and unexpected change in the outer world. And that doesn't leave one without some preoccupation. But actually, there's something that I've enjoyed about how you get jolted alive when you realize you don't recognize the world and you don't know what's going to happen next. So everything gets a little bit more vivid. So in a strange sort of way, I've been relishing this, not because it's easy. But when I was first asked to talk about practicing in this context, I thought I've really got nothing to say. And the reason is it feels like nothing's changed in my practice. So I thought the most useful thing I could do is share what for me is a root teaching that I've found most useful. And this root teaching just continues as an inspiration. Now, just a quick caveat, we're all very, very different in what we respond to in the Dharma. That's what makes the Dharma so magnificent. That's why I fell in love with the Dharma. I love its rich, vast cosmological perspective. I love the profound philosophical precision. I love the variety. So I really like that complexity, but there's a whole other side of me, which is always on the lookout for a very simple teaching or precept. I think precepts can be translated quite accurately as a practical teaching that you try and put into practice. That side of me is always on the lookout for something very simple that can apply. So I'm going to share my simple teaching, which is 6 words: quite purified intention, correction after failure. So a bit of context, that comes from, we might get an overhead in a second, we might not. If we don't, I'll just keep popping it up. For those who are visual, quite purified intention, correction after failure. So the context is, oh, here we go. Maybe it's, oh, good, here we are. The context, this comes from 4 precepts by a teacher called a Sangha. And a Sangha was 4th century Mahayana practitioner, the co-founder of the Yogacara school. For anyone who knows our devotional image, the refuge tree, a Sangha's on the refuge tree. And these 2 precepts or teachings are embedded in what sometimes called the 4 precepts about how to relate to how to engage with ethics. If you're interested in this, if you just Google that phrase and put a Sangha, and you'll get some background material. Why do I love this so much? I think there's, let me just go through quickly, given I've only got 4 minutes. The quite purified, the purified is connected with this as an ethical precept. This is about having overarching ethical vigilance. And I love the quite, I like this translation. I think that's a sort of acknowledgement that we can't always come from a pure place, but we can come from a place that's quite purified. So quite purified intentions. Intentions are our commitments or our actions. It's how we move through the world. It's how we act. I always like to differentiate between the experience we're having and how we move and act in the world. And remember, according to the Dharma, intentions and actions include thoughts and heart responses, and what we say and what we do. And then moving on, correction after failure is, well, first of all, it's a recognition that we do fail and we will fail hundreds of times, but there's something incredibly positive and important about that moment of recognition that we've fallen short. Now, this links very strongly with an important meditation principle. Take the mindfulness of breathing. The moment you remember that you've become disconnected with the breath, to take an example of the mindfulness of breathing, whilst it's easy to feel that's a moment of failure, actually that's a moment of success. That's a moment of awakening. That's the moment when we're remembering what our purpose is and reconnecting with it. So these moments of correction after failure are very important. So that's my root teaching, quite purified intention, and quite doesn't mean half-hearted. It means a recognition that we come from mixed motives and we don't always get it right. And a recognition when we've fallen away. A couple of practical examples. In the lockdown circumstances, people are really inhabiting different realms right now. Some people are having a lovely time. Some people are very, very frightened. Some people are suffering. Some people are having, life-changing awakenings. So one of my intentions has been to always find out what space and realm someone is in before I share the realm that I'm in, or before I make any comment on anything. So it's a sort of sensitivity to what realm, what experience, what are the circumstances of whoever I'm speaking to. So I'm just giving an example of an intention. And I've fallen short from time to time on that one, but I notice when I've done that, and I make a resolve to correct next time. So I've no idea how the time is. I suspect my 4 minutes is about there. That's it, really. Yeah, just going more and more deeply into the precepts, clear commitment, clear intention, and correction after failure, and repeat several million times until the next bardo. Thank you.
Great. Well, yeah, I'm sure you've enjoyed all of those talks as much as I have. They're just fantastic to hear from 5 different Sangha members. And what I was experiencing was a lot of mudita. Another one of the Dharma Viharas, just a sense of rejoicing and delight in being so impressed by these 5 individuals and their practice. And also delight of being part of this wonderful Sangha. I had the sense where we could almost zoom into any one of the windows, any one of these boxes, and have heard something really impressive about how we've all been practicing during this pandemic. So I've really enjoyed that, and I'm sure you've been containing and wanting to release a sense of applause for these people. So let's have a big round of applause for all 5 speakers, for Pranashri, Peter, Paula, Vicky and Ashra. Thank you very much. Thank you.